Jim has recently been promoted to Chief Risk Officer of Stevens Coffee, and it is now his job to manage risk to ensure the efficient allocation of resources. Part of this involves looking at different types of risk and employing countermeasures to make sure the firm can run smoothly and be sustainable. As Chief Risk Officer, it is Jim's job to oversee enterprise risk management, which includes a subset of different risks that could present issues to the coffee shop. One of the most important ones is that of operational risk. These risks include a variety of different issues that Jim has to address to make sure the coffee shop remains sustainable. On his first day in his new role, he finds out that the machines are getting old, meaning that it is more likely for these machines to break down and stop working. Jim needs to make sure that machines get repaired or replaced to make sure that the coffee shop can run smoothly and not have the risk of the machines breaking and no longer being able to make coffee. Another part of operational risk is natural disasters that could affect the firm's operations. Jim realizes that the coffee shop has been built on the side of a hill on a fault line in California which is in a drought. Part of his job is to calculate the risk of mudslides, due to heavy rain, destruction due to an earthquake, or forest fires that could also potentially destroy the shop. In order to account for this risk, Jim visits his local weather derivatives broker, Bob. After discussing the issue with Bob, he decides to purchase 3 different derivatives to hedge against each of the risks. Another part of operational risk for Jim is looking at pollution. It is his job to make sure that the firm is not harming the environment due to their unorthodox production of coffee, which includes using a coal oven and plastic cups that they use to serve their product. For this, Jim needs to make sure that the coffee shop limits their burning of coal and also maybe switch the cups to paper instead of plastic to cut down on pollution and improve their ESG in order to get more investors and look better in the eye of the public. Since the coffee shop employs about a dozen baristas, Jim also needs to worry about personnel risk as well. This includes looking at risks that could harm the employees, which are vital to the ability of the firm to function and be sustainable, because if the firm loses all its employees it won't be able to function. Jim wants to recruit the better baristas to make the coffee shop run more smoothly. However, the best baristas are mostly California hippies who only want to work for sustainably minded cafes. In order to accomplish this, Jim decides he is going to upgrade the shop and sell fair trade coffee. This way his beans are well sourced because they consider both the social and environmental aspect of the coffee bean production process. Another part of operational risks is making sure your employees stay safe and don't get hurt. For this, Jim needs to make sure there are safety measures in place to make sure that employees don't get burned by the hot coffee or slip and fall due to wet floors. Jim can accomplish this by setting machines to max temperatures and also having people on duty to clean up spilled drinks to prevent accidents. Another important risk that Jim has to manage is that of market risk. This includes looking at factors that affect the coffee shop market and that could affect the sustainability of the shop. Due to recent changes in the climate, coffee farmers in South America have seen more and more bad yields over the years, which has decreased the supply of coffee beans and increased the demand. Jim needs to make sure that his coffee beans are fair trade, but also that he gets them from somewhere where the effects of climate change are minimized. If the shop cannot get beans, they can no longer make coffee, which will make it hard for them to run their business. After implementing these changes, there is giant earthquake accompanied by a massive forest fire that destroys most of California. However, since Jim used a Monte Carlo simulation to predict these weather outcomes, he was able to successfully hedge his bets and received enough money from the weather derivative to open up a new coffee shop in a much more sustainable location in Montana.